Ruining my best friend's life out of jealousy, and I'm not sure I regret it. Sabotaged my brilliant best friend's career because I was tired of living in his shadow. He lost everything. I got what I wanted, and now I'm questioning if I'm actually sorry or just scared of getting caught. I've been staring at this blank screen for 3 hours. Part of me knows I should delete this and never look back. But I need to get this out before it eats me alive. Or maybe I'm just looking for validation that I'm not a complete sociopath. Either way, here goes nothing. Meet Jake and me, 2 kids from suburban Cleveland who met freshman year at Ohio State. Both pre-med. Both convinced we'd change the world. The difference was Jake actually had the talent to back up that ambition. I was the grinder. 4.0 GPA through sheer determination, 16-hour study days, color-coded calendars, and enough Adderall to stock a pharmacy. Jake, that bastard, would show up to organic chemistry hungover, spend the lecture doodling in his notebook, and still ace every exam. Professors loved him. Students wanted to be him. I wanted to be him. But here's the thing, Jake was also genuinely good. Not just smart, but kind. When I was struggling with biochemistry sophomore year, he spent entire weekends walking me through metabolic pathways. Never condescending, never impatient. Just helpful. Like it was natural to him. We became inseparable. Study partners, roommates, wingmen. I was the responsible one who kept us organized and on track. He was the brilliant one who made everything look effortless. It worked, or so I thought. The crack in the foundation. The first real crack appeared junior year during MCAT prep. We took practice tests together, compared scores, the whole 9 yards. Jake consistently scored 520 plus. My best was 515, and that was after 3 months of intensive prep that nearly gave me a nervous breakdown. "Don't worry about it," Jake said when he saw my face after getting our latest scores back. "You're way more disciplined than me. That matters more than raw test scores." I smiled and nodded, but inside, something ugly was growing. Discipline? That's what people say when you lack talent. She's not the prettiest, but she has a great personality. Same energy. Still, I pushed it down. We were friends. Best friends. This was just my insecurity talking. Medical school. Where the knife twisted. We both got into good medical schools. Jake at Johns Hopkins. Me at Case Western. Different cities, but we stayed close. Video calls every week, visits when we could manage it. The stories Jake told about Hopkins made my stomach turn. Research opportunities falling into his lap. Professors inviting him to conferences. Third-year rotations where attendings would specifically request him. Meanwhile, I was grinding away at Case Western, fighting for scraps of recognition. The worst part? Jake seemed genuinely oblivious to how good he had it. He'd complain about being overwhelmed by all the opportunities coming his way. Poor Jake, having to choose between research positions that others would kill for. I started comparing our LinkedIn profiles obsessively. His list of publications, awards, and connections grew weekly. Mine looked pathetic in comparison. Same effort, vastly different results. The residency application nightmare. 4th year was when everything came to a head. We were both applying for internal medicine residencies, aiming for the most competitive programs. Jake was shooting for Mass General, Mount Sinai, Mayo Clinic, the holy trinity of IM programs. I had the same list, plus a bunch of safety programs that I prayed would take me. Our friendship became strained during interview season. Jake would casually mention getting invited to interview at Harvard while I was still waiting to hear back from community programs. He tried to be supportive, but I could see the pity in his eyes. "Have you heard back from Mass General yet?" he asked during one of our calls. "Still waiting." I lied. I'd been rejected 2 weeks earlier. "I'm sure you'll hear soon. They'd be crazy not to want you." That casual confidence in my abilities felt like mockery. Easy for him to say. He'd already been offered a preliminary spot at 3 different programs. The opportunity. Match day was in March. In February, something happened that changed everything. Jake called me, panicked. He'd made a mistake, a big one. During his sub-internship at Mass General, he'd missed a medication allergy in a patient's chart. Nothing catastrophic happened, but it could have been serious. The attending physician had documented it, but Jake thought it might not make it into his final evaluation since the patient was fine and the error was caught quickly. "Should I report it?" he asked. "I mean, it's technically already documented, but I'm not sure if I should bring more attention to it." This was my moment. I could have been a good friend, could have talked him through the ethical implications, helped him make the right decision. Instead, I saw an opportunity. "I think you're overthinking it," I told him. "If it's already in the system and no harm was done, reporting it again might just create unnecessary drama. Sometimes the best thing to do is learn from it and move on." Jake seemed relieved. "Yeah, you're probably right. Thanks for talking me through this." After we hung up, I felt sick. But I also felt something else, a dark satisfaction. For once, I had information he didn't. For once, I held some power in our relationship. Here's where I become the villain of the story, and I'm not proud of what comes next. I knew Jake's residency coordinator at Hopkins. We'd met at a conference the previous year. Dr. Sarah Chun, brilliant woman, very by the book about ethics and professional standards. She'd mentioned during our conversation how important transparency was in medical training. I crafted the email carefully. Made it seem like I was a concerned colleague who'd heard rumors about an incident that might not have been properly reported. I didn't use my real name, obviously. Created a burner email account, routed it through a VPN, the whole paranoid routine. The email was vague enough to maintain plausible deniability but specific enough to prompt an investigation. I mentioned the approximate date, the type of medication error, and suggested that there might have been incomplete disclosure during the residency application process. I sent it 3 days before match day. Jake called me Saturday morning, sobbing. I'd never heard him cry before. "They pulled my applications," he said through tears. "All of them. Mass General called Hopkins, Hopkins called me, and now every program I interviewed with knows about the medication error. I played dumb. What? How is that possible? I thought you said it was documented. It was, but apparently there was some question about whether I'd properly disclosed it during interviews. Someone sent an anonymous tip to Hopkins suggesting I'd been hiding it. They launched an investigation and found that I'd answered no. When programs asked about any safety incidents during sub-internships, my stomach dropped. I hadn't thought about that question on the applications. Jake had answered honestly based on his understanding at the time, but it looked like deliberate deception in hindsight. The worst part, Jake continued, is that I could have just reported it properly from the beginning. Dr. Martinez at Mass General said it probably wouldn't have been a big deal if I'd been upfront about it. But now it looks like I was trying to hide something. I made appropriate sympathetic noises while secretly rejoicing. It had worked better than I'd hoped. Jake didn't match. He'd have to wait a full year and reapply, starting from scratch with this black mark on his record. Meanwhile, I matched at a decent program in Chicago, not my first choice, but respectable. Our friendship changed after that. Jake became withdrawn, depressed. He took a research position at Cleveland Clinic for his gap year, living back with his parents. The golden boy who'd never failed at anything was suddenly facing his first real setback, and he didn't know how to handle it. That I, on the other hand, was thriving. Started my internship that July with a chip on my shoulder and something to prove. Worked harder than anyone else, stayed later, took on extra cases. For the first time in my life, I wasn't competing with Jake's natural brilliance. Without Jake's shadow looming over me, I discovered something surprising. I was actually pretty good at this. Not brilliant like Jake, but solid. Reliable. The kind of resident that attendings trusted with complex cases. I threw myself into research projects, volunteered for committees, networked aggressively. By the end of my intern year, I'd been selected for chief resident track, something that would have been impossible if I'd been constantly compared to Jake. Jake and I still talked, but less frequently. He seemed different, less confident, more anxious. The easy charm that had opened every door for him was gone, replaced by a desperate hunger to prove himself. When he told me about his research projects, there was an edge to his voice that hadn't been there before. "I'm going to crush the match this year," he said during one of our calls. "This gap year thing might have been a blessing in disguise. I've got 3 first author publications now, way more research experience." I felt a familiar pang of anxiety. What if he came back stronger than ever? What if the setback was just a temporary detour in his inevitable success story? Jake did match the second time around. Not at Mass General or Mayo, but at a solid program in Denver. He seemed genuinely happy about it, which surprised me. The old Jake would have been devastated by anything less than the top tier. "I think this whole experience taught me something," he told me during one of our video calls. "I was so focused on prestige that I forgot why I wanted to be a doctor in the first place. Denver's program has an amazing community health component. I'm actually excited about it." Part of me was relieved. He'd landed somewhere good, so I didn't have to feel guilty about completely destroying his career. But another part, the part one hate acknowledging, was almost disappointed. Where was the bitter Jake who'd been crushed by failure? This mature, philosophical version was somehow more threatening than the depressed one. Fast forward 3 years. I'm now a chief resident at a prestigious Chicago program, co-authoring papers, giving presentations at national conferences. Everything I dreamed of since medical school. Jake is doing well too. He's become some kind of advocate for healthcare access in underserved communities. Different path than we'd originally planned, but he seems fulfilled. The thing is, I should feel guilty about what I did. I should be eaten alive by remorse, right? That's how these stories usually go. The villain realizes the error of their ways and seeks redemption. But I don't. Not really. Sure, there are moments, usually late at night when I'm alone with my thoughts, where I feel something that might be guilt. But mostly, I feel vindicated. I worked just as hard as Jake. I deserved success just as much as he did. The only difference was that I was willing to level the playing field when life refused to do it naturally. Here's what I've realized about myself, and it's probably going to make most of you hate me. I'm not actually sorry I did it. Jake's life isn't ruined. He's happy, successful in his own way, making a difference in the world. Maybe even more of a difference than he would have made at some elite program where he'd have been just another brilliant doctor among many. And me? I'm exactly where I always wanted to be. Working at a top-tier hospital, respected by my colleagues, building the kind of career I dreamed of since I was pre-med. The only difference is that I had to cheat to get here. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. If the outcome is positive for everyone involved, was what I did really that wrong? I've thought about this a lot. Jake was coasting on natural talent while I was grinding away with pure effort. The system was rigged in favor of people like him, charming, effortlessly brilliant, blessed with the kind of genetic lottery that makes everything easier. That I didn't change his test scores or sabotage his interviews. I just revealed information that was technically true. Jake did make a medication error. He did fail to properly disclose it during his residency interviews. I didn't create those facts. I just made sure they came to light. Was it underhanded? Absolutely. Was it unethical? Probably. But was it unfair? I'm honestly not sure anymore. The more I think about it, the more I realize that our entire medical training system is built on these kinds of power dynamics. Networking, connections, luck, timing. They all matter as much as competence. I just played the game better than Jake did. Jake got married last year to a nurse he met in Denver. They seem happy together. She's down to earth in a way that balances out his intensity. He's become passionate about healthcare policy, talks about maybe running for local office someday. It's a good life, maybe even better than the one he would have had if everything had gone according to his original plan. Me? I'm single, focused on my career, building toward a fellowship in cardiology at Johns Hopkins. Ironic, right? I'll probably end up at the program Jake originally wanted to attend for residency. We still talk occasionally. Holiday texts, birthday wishes, the occasional catch-up call. He doesn't know what I did, and I don't think he ever will. Sometimes I catch him looking at my LinkedIn profile, and I wonder if he ever thinks about how different our paths became after that match day. So here's what I need you all to help me figure out. Am I a sociopath for not feeling worse about this? I keep waiting for the crushing guilt, the moment of moral reckoning that's supposed to come, but it never does. I feel satisfied, like I finally leveled a playing field that was never fair to begin with. Jake was always going to be successful. Guys like him always land on their feet. Maybe he needed that setback to become a more well-rounded person. Maybe I did him a favor by knocking him off his pedestal before he got too comfortable up there. And maybe I'm just telling myself that to avoid admitting that I'm a terrible person. The truth is, I don't know if I'd do it differently if I had the chance. That probably makes me a monster, but at least I'm an honest monster. I guess what I'm really asking is this. In a world where success often comes down to luck and connections rather than merit, is it wrong to stack the deck in your favor? Especially when you're just correcting for advantages that were never fair to begin with. Jake had every advantage: natural intelligence, charisma, the kind of effortless confidence that opens doors. I had discipline and determination, but in the medical world, that's not always enough. So I leveled the playing field. Is that really so different from what everyone else does, just more direct? I'm not looking for absolution. I know what I did was wrong by conventional moral standards, but I'm curious about what you all think about the bigger picture. In a system that's inherently unfair, are we obligated to play by rules that disadvantage us? Or am I just a narcissist looking for validation from internet strangers? Update. Holy shit, this blew up way more than I expected. Reading through the comments and, wow, you guys are not holding back. A few clarifications. 1. Yes, I understand that what I did was legally and ethically wrong. I'm not arguing otherwise. Point 2. No, I don't think Jake deserved what happened to him. I think life is unfair and I chose to make it slightly less unfair for me. Point 3. For those asking about the patient who could have been harmed, that's actually part of why I don't feel as guilty as I should. The system worked. The error was caught, documented, and Jake learned from it. Isn't transparency about mistakes exactly what we want in medicine? Update 2. The DMs are intense. About 50-50 split between people calling me a psychopath and people saying they understand why I did it. A few claiming they've done similar things. One person shared a story about sabotaging a colleague's research that made my thing look like child's play. TO addressed some common questions. Have you considered therapy? Yes, I've been in therapy for 2 years. My therapist knows about this. She's working on helping me develop empathy. It's a process. What if Jake finds out? Honestly, I think he'd be devastated, but probably not surprised. He's always been too trusting. Maybe learning that people aren't always what they seem would be good for him. Don't you feel bad for his parents/fiancé/etc.? His parents are proud of the work he's doing now. His wife loves him for who he is, not his residency program ranking. If anything, the adversity made him more relatable. Update 3. This is probably my last update. The thread is starting to get brigade by people from other subreddits, and some of the comments are getting pretty dark. A few final thoughts. I've been called a sociopath about 100 times in the last 12 hours. Maybe that's true, but I've also gotten messages from people thanking me for being honest about the ugly realities of competitive fields. Apparently, I'm not the only one who's ever felt like the system was rigged against them. To the people suggesting I confess to Jake. I've thought about it, but what would that accomplish besides making me feel better? It would destroy our friendship, probably damage his marriage. His wife thinks I'm a good friend. And for what? So I can feel morally superior for coming clean? That seems more selfish than staying quiet. I don't expect forgiveness or understanding from most of you. I know what I did was wrong, but I also know that I'm not the only person who's ever bent the rules to get ahead. I'm just honest enough to admit it. Maybe that makes me a monster, or maybe it just makes me human. Either way, I got what I wanted. Jake got a different life than he planned, but probably a better one. And the world kept spinning. If that makes me a sociopath, so be it. At least I'm a successful one. Comments are locked due to brigading. Thanks for the honest feedback, even if most of it was brutal.